So I'd like to thank everyone tonight for joining us for Managing Fuel Cost Impacts for Small Businesses. I'm Kelly Brown from Business Tasmania, and I'm joined tonight by Warren Moore from the Braddon Business Centre. Warren's a very experienced business person running his own business and having been a business advisor, delivering the Tasmania Business Advice Service and New Business Support Service for many years. So tonight I'd like to take a few minutes and share with you the support you can access through Business Tasmania, and then I'll hand over to Warren, and he's really going to talk through with the current disruptions that we're all experiencing through what is the impact globally, which is flowing down to us here in Tasmania, and how you can actually look at the costs that are impacted. And Warren will share some strategies for you moving forward and moving into the future with a plan. So I will start with my moving on. I'd like to firstly start by acknowledging the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. So I'd like to there share with Business Tasmania, we're a statewide service delivered by the Tasmanian government, and we're here for you every step of the way, from that dreaming stage through starting your business, running your business for many, many years. We, I guess, a central point where you can go to for anything business related. So we save you time, which saves you money and saves you stress, not knowing who you can go to, not having to call around the houses, so to speak. So you can actually come to us for, it might be a new idea, you might be really excited about something you want to try in your business. You might just want to talk to someone and have a sounding board about what you're actually doing. Could be a difficulty, cash flow challenge, which is very common at the moment, unfortunately. It could be, how to work through the current situation. So we have great support. And I'd like to just highlight a few of those examples, but I'd really love for you to all get in touch with the Business Tasmania team. They love a chat and they love nothing more than to actually help everyone that comes our way. So we do many things. Government, state and Australian is a very large organisation. So we have our finger on the pulse of what's going on. So you can just come to us, tell us your story, and we will get to know what your needs are, and we'll make sure we're offering the very best solution to meet your needs. So we run events and workshops like this, and we have excellent business advisors. We have Warren with us tonight, and as you'd imagine, we have amazing information and tools to help you every step of the way through your business's journey. So a key service offering we have tonight, I want to highlight, is the New Business Support Service and the Tasmanian Business Advice Service. So Warren is one of our advisors who delivers both of these services. So you will hear a lot of great things tonight, and don't be overwhelmed, because what you can do is you can follow up after this session and you can book in for free one-on-one advice with Warren or an advisor of your choosing. So if you're out there and if you're thinking about starting a business, or your Australian business number is less than 12 months old, you can access 2 hours of free advice to really help you get started, help you get set up, whether it's pricing your product, making sure your structure's right, can be about anything. Once your Australian business number is 12 months old or more, you can then go on to access 5 hours of free advice each financial year. And so we're looking at April. So if you haven't accessed those 5 hours yet, you could book in for those hours over the next couple of months, and then from 1 July you can then go on to access another 5 hours. So it's a tip there. So it's the advice service offering is fantastic. So they can help you with many things. All of the things that you'll hear tonight, you can follow up with a free session, but it can be about anything business related. So just really keep that in mind. Tonight we will be, and I should say to people who registered with questions, thank you so very much. We will be covering off on as many of those questions that you added down as possible. Some people listening would actually like to really understand how to implement a fuel surcharge. And so there are a couple of options for that, because we won't spend that time, because we need to be really thorough to help you to do that. So there are a couple of options. You can actually access free business advice one-on-one to implement or even review your fuel surcharge. Or if you would like us to run an event just around fuel surcharges, we're very happy to do that. So when we send the survey out to you tomorrow to complete, to tell us what you thought of tonight, please add on there if you would like us to run a fuel surcharge event. So many ways you can book the advice service through the website, the QR code, and again, all of these slides, I should say, I forgot to mention at the beginning, will be emailed to you tomorrow as well. So you can also contact the Business Tasmania team and they can arrange for you to put that request through to see an advisor. So it's an excellent service offering. Another one I'd like to promote to you is the Employer of Choice Assist program. So if you employ staff, or it could be even wanting to employ staff, this is another free service. They can actually assist you with attracting staff, assist you with, might be a job template, job description, it could be contracts. It could be award information. If you have staff, if you're having a performance issue, they can help you work out what is the best way to manage that appropriately. So anything about employing staff, it could be how to make your workplace a better place to be, to keep those staff and attract them from other people when you're putting applications out there. So again, you can connect with our Business Tasmania team and we can get you onto this free service offering as well. Sometimes you might just have a quick question and you really just want to run it by someone who's experienced and qualified to answer questions could be about the Fair Work Act or pay rates. You can connect with the Workplace Relations Helpline through the Business Tasmania team as well. So keep that in mind if you do want quick access to information around that topic. We recently launched our Business Tasmania website, and we're very proud of what we've developed for you. We have great new information, so I'd love for you to go there and have a look and actually sign up to the newsletter. That's the way in which you'll keep up to date with new opportunities, really important information for businesses that come out in Tassie that we want you to be across. So we're really hoping to keep continuing to improve the website to be the best it can be for you. You can see on the screen there, we actually have a great new page that Warren helped us develop on understanding fuel surcharges. So that's available from the homepage of our website. So that's a great starting point, but I would encourage you not to do it on your own. By all means, go there and have a read, but I would then meet with one of our business advisors as well. The Grants and Funding Finder is a new tool on our website. So on here, you'll find any local, state and Australian government opportunities, and you can search, and it's a really quick way of you finding what is on offer. At the moment, there are not a lot of grant opportunities on offer, but if there were, they would be available here. Some people like to go to our website and have a look for yourself and just find out what's there, which is great. But a lot of people prefer to pick up the phone and have a chat to the Business Tas team and just say, look, this is me, this is what my business is, how long I've been in business, is there anything on offer for me? And that way they can talk to you about all the different things that might be relevant right now. I would like to highlight the Australian government at this time, they've released the Economic Resilience Program. So this is a zero interest loan program that is relevant for some businesses. Okay, so not every business, unfortunately, but some businesses are eligible if they are in identified industries and they've had market disruptions. It's to help them keep going and overcoming certain challenges. So there are two streams, zero interest loans up to $5 million. I mean, as you'd imagine with any loan program, there is eligibility criteria, and this is relevant for some businesses. So I would encourage you to have a look at the web page and have a read. And if you think it is something that you might fit within, actually have a look at the frequently asked questions and then get in contact with the Australian government. So if anything else is going to be announced, whether that's state or Australian government, to assist with the current challenges that you're all facing, then we will be actively promoting it across our social media channels, across the newsletter, and on the website so that you don't miss out. And just quickly, the Tools and Support Finder is another tool that we have for you. So you can go here and search on different options, whether that be, again, free advice or different tools that you need to help you to run your business more efficiently, save you time, for example. So again, a tool I just wanted to point out. So as I mentioned, like we're here tonight, we're running a great online event with Warren. We do run face-to-face events and more online events on different topics that we're hearing from you that you would like us to deliver. So coming up, we have a number of events that you can access through our event calendar, which is on the Business Tasmania website. They're online. These ones are online and they're at no cost. But again, when you do fill out that survey that we send you tomorrow, love for you to fill it out. But tell us what else you would like us to be delivering for you. So there are, as I mentioned, there are many ways that you can connect with us. You will see us out and about running events or at different forums. So if you ever see us, do come and say hello, or call us or connect with us via our email. So what I've shared now is just only some examples. The list is not exhaustive. So please, I guess, get in touch so we can get to know you, and then we can work out what are the best options right now for you to help you in your business. So at that point, I have the great pleasure of handing over to Warren Moore. He's very experienced and has a lot to share to help you navigate and work through the next steps into the future. So thank you, Warren. I'll let you start sharing your screen.
Well, thanks, Kelly. You can see my screen?
Can see your screen. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you. And look, and everybody, thanks for the opportunity to present this information. It's a pretty critical time, and so thanks for actually taking the time. I quickly want to go through the big picture, and I apologise up front if I'm telling you stuff that you already know. But let's start from the big picture, and then end up in the detailed responses. So. Okay, the big picture globally, I mean, if you don't already know, that's the issue was around the Strait of Hormuz, which is in a state of flux almost by the hour these days. And given the strait is used for oil, petrol, diesel, and a whole stack of petrochemicals, that flows on directly to Australia, because 80% of Australia's diesel, petrol, oil, and petrochemicals actually come through there. The petrochemicals is a critical part, as well as the cost of diesel and fuel for all the products that we use across just about every sector: packaging, fertilizers, synthetics, a whole range of things. And with each industry, even going further down the supply chain, being impacted by imported food, beverages, furniture, spare parts, all of those sorts of bits and pieces. And I'm sure already business are being impacted on that. Across Australia, it's driving up operating and transport costs by 30% due to rising fuel prices, higher costs for travel, utilities, heating, cooling, fertilisers in particular. And I don't think we've even started to see the real impact of that as yet, because a lot of farmers are still going through existing stock. It's further compounded by the potential for interest rate rises because of increasing prices, inflation increases, and the Reserve Bank uses monetary policy through the rate of interest to actually manage that. It's having a direct impact on tourism and other related travel, not only through the cost of travel, but also ports and airports where we can actually go through. And seeing that the Tasmanian Tourism Industry does have a great deal of influence from from not only our national visitors, but also our international ones, that's actually quite important. But also, us operating, and I'm one of them, small businesses, are probably some of the most affected by cost increases because we are quite often at the end of the supply chain and find it difficult to be able to pass on those costs without experiencing reductions in demand and customers going elsewhere. It's always an issue, and we'll talk about that later on. So in Tasmania itself, we are facing higher costs for a whole range of business inputs, leading to price increases. And Tasmania, because we're an island, we have a double issue in relation to cost, both sea and road. So tourism, trades, ag, retail are immediately affected, but all the other sectors will be impacted in at least the short to medium terms. As I've mentioned, smaller businesses are quite often, I refer to the canary in the coal mine, because they are the first to feel the biggest impact because they have very little spare capacity, financially or otherwise, and rising costs without increasing prices is actually quite difficult, particularly where we can't absorb cost increases through margins, which are also very, very thin. Now, if that's not bad enough, we are still dealing with ongoing labour shortages, higher interest rates, inflationary pressures, declining productivity, and the overall cost of running a business, compliance, tax, all of those sorts of bits and pieces. The impact of the war in Iran is on top of these things. So small business in particular is feeling things pretty tough, but I'm guessing I'm not telling you something that you don't already know. The increases in prices across the board through increasing diesel, fuel, oil, petrochemicals, does put pressure on interest rates because it is likely that the Reserve Bank of Australia, in order to keep demand or prices under control, are likely to increase interest rates further, which is just makes things more difficult. Our smaller and specialised operators are particularly vulnerable because they have very little capacity and very little margin to absorb any costs. The increase in fuel prices, but also the ongoing supply uncertainty. Businesses not knowing what's going to happen. So quite often, and along with consumers, they just said, well, we're just keeping things on hold until we've got a better idea of where things are heading. It's probably a sensible strategy, but not the only one, that's for sure. Cash flow is king. We can be as profitable as we like, but if we don't have cash, for reasons of cash tied up in stock, cash tied up in debtors, cash tied up in the principal component of loan repayments, if we don't have cash, we just can't absorb costs without passing them on in terms of higher prices and then taking the risk of what that's likely to happen in terms of reduced demand. Look, some of the key impacts, we've got soaring operating costs. One, we're also dealing with including fuel surcharges. And as Kelly has already said, I did note there are a number of people in the webinar tonight who are interested in fuel surcharges. That's a topic on its own. And we've already run workshops for the livestock transport operators, for the truck owners and road transport operators, also separately, just with workshops just on how to calculate fuel surcharges. So we've been down this space. So if you want help with that, you can contact me or go through Kelly. Or if you really wanted to run a workshop on that, we can certainly do that. So covering things like, what base do we use? How do we work out the percentage increase? How do we include that on invoices? How do we communicate that with our customers? They're all the things that we cover in a workshop on that basis. Even calculating what percentage of your total costs are actually fuel costs, because that's what we use to also use to calculate the surcharge. And due to longer distances and smaller markets, rural and regional locations are hardest hit throughout Tasmania because they just don't have anywhere else to go. There is a shift in consumer sentiment in that the growing uncertainty is expected to reduce overall demand. If people aren't quite sure how costs are going to go, then people say, well, let's just not spend that until we've got a bit of an idea of how things might be. Look, as far as the outlook is concerned, look, honestly, I'd love to be able to say it's going to be over soon. My view is it probably won't. There's a whole stack of politics to play and all of those things. So we really have to be planning our businesses, taking into consideration that the current situation is not going to change overnight. Look, I've gone through and had a look at some of the major sectors throughout our economy and said, okay, what costs are you likely to be looking at straight away? So accommodation and food services, you're going to be affected by diesel, petrol costs, airfares, aviation fuel. If the cost of aviation fuel increases as it does, imported food products, linen, waste collection, insurance. Insurance is going to be a critical one because it's going to be. It may well be that insurers stop insuring some kind of business because they are unable to manage those sorts of risks. Agriculture, diesel, not only for diesel for the farm operating machinery, but diesel for transporting farm products to market, fertiliser in particular, finance, insurance, export costs. We have had conversations with the Master Builders Association about running a similar sorts of workshops with the construction industry, simply because they are incredibly impacted through increases in steel prices, cement, plastics, PVCs, and with that, a lot of builders quoted on houses 12 months, 6 months, 12 months ago, and they've got a quote, and there's very little opportunity within contracts for them to increase prices. So they're in quite a difficult situation, mainly because banks are disinclined to lend the homeowners additional funds. So they're in a difficult situation. Manufacturing, with all of their diesels, lubricants, resins, retail, petrol, LPG, imported goods, shipping, freight, electronics. Most products are brought into here. ICT, fibre optic cables, networking switches. A lot of those products come from overseas. Tourism and hospitality, food, linen, and so on. Plus, the big thing that tourism and hospitality are also dealing with, amongst others, is the growing uncertainty. So, as we'll look further on, I'm suggesting we really look to our winter and local markets at least for the time being. Some of the broader responses that I think you probably should look at is the big one is risk management, identifying and managing the key risks. And a good place to start is list all the weaknesses in your businesses, and also identifying the major threats, a bit like doing a SWOT analysis, by taking the weaknesses and the threats, and then developing what's likely to happen if we don't manage this weakness, what's likely to happen if this threat really ramps up, and how are we going to do that. Look, if you're finding it difficult to do this kind of stuff, then by all means get in touch with one of the TBAS service providers, the advisors, and they can help you do that. So the key risks might include rapidly increasing input costs with a reduced opportunity to pass those costs on. Not only increasing costs, but a reduction in demand and maybe even reduced forward orders. Lack of uncertainty and lack of control. Challenges in retaining key staff. Now, what I mean by that, if it looks like your business is at risk and employees think, oh, gee, am I going to lose my job here? They may choose to seek employment somewhere else. So you really need to keep your staff on board with what's happening. And with most small businesses, there's a limited capacity to adapt or to change. So what you need to do is identify the risks, identify the impact, and come up with a strategy as best as possible. And sometimes you just can't do anything about it. We are small business after all in actually managing those risks. But by all means, seek some advice if you need to. It may well be possible to shift your focus to more local demand and maybe even winter demand, particularly in tourism and hospitality. So if our local customers don't have to travel as far, then therefore they still may be happy to travel locally. So focusing on customers in closer markets. I know that's difficult sometimes because particularly in Tasmania, our closer markets are still quite small. It's very tempting to target larger markets on the mainland and overseas, but for the moment, our closer markets might be our most cost-effective ones. Develop and promote products for winter services, less people, log fires, all of those sorts of things. I'll mention this next point a couple of times. Leveraging partnerships with other businesses in order to share costs. Look, doing business with a competitor is always a difficult thing to do because in small markets, we can't take the chance that we're going to lose a customer or lose an advantage because we've let a competitor know how we're doing things. But sometimes, in times like this, we may be able to get some benefits, like with freight, sharing, advertising, customer segments, as a way of actually reducing costs. And I know some businesses are doing this already. Looking at ways to reduce your transport and fuel costs by where possible, replacing hybrid with electric options, if that's at all possible. Planning your business travel a bit better so that you're doing loops rather than backtracking. Encouraging shared transport with other operators, and getting our employees to make sure that they're driving our vehicles as having the tyres pumped up and, well, I dare say it, maybe sticking to the speed limit. I'm probably one of the worst ones at that. So shorter travel distances compared with mainland states may provide some opportunities here. So looking locally. Fuel costs don't just affect transport, but a whole stack of other operating costs as well. So increasing use of local producers, such as Tasmanian food services, retail products, materials, to reduce freight costs. Adjusting product and service offerings to take into account more local products and services. I know that there are tourism operators that I work with who are now really focusing on attracting our local visitors. The intrastate market is always a difficult one, but now might be a time to actually have a look at that. And of course, that does focus on our brand. Redesigning things to our products and services to emphasise our value over distance. Some businesses do this really well, that is being able to sell a higher price through being able to sell the increased value. It's not just a matter of increasing price. It's much harder to sell an increased price if you're not producing some increased value as well. So where possible, are there some smaller things that you can do which add to your product or service so that you can increase the price, but also increasing the value? A strong focus on your story, that is what makes you and your business unique. Now, I'm not just talking about tourism or hospitality there. I'm saying every business has its own story. Look, I was only just talking with one of our clients today about what it is that makes their business different, and so therefore, from a promotional point of view, how do they let people know why they are different and therefore offer more value for money than anything else? I mean, for example, product packaging. I would use this because I do a lot of fishing, but selling a rod, reel, tackle, where to fish, all in the one bundle. By putting some more product information to explaining local origin and looking at areas that we can do in Tasmania that we do very well, but focusing more on those. Look, I'll go on to the next slide. I've lots of things I could talk about, but we know we'll be here all night. Look, reviewing costs and adjusting prices sensitively. Some businesses do this well all the time, and it's far easier for customers to accept a larger number of small price increases than a smaller number of big price increases. So it might be a time to offer a lower cost option, but a lower priced option, but at a lower cost. So rather than having the premium product, there may be a number of product grades, but they actually have less in them. So your products are still being competitively priced, but having that balance between price but still protecting profit margin. And if you really need some help in looking at the way your products are costed and therefore priced, then all of the TBAS business advisors can certainly help as far as that's concerned. And that's something that we are doing all the time, not just at the moment or during COVID or GFC, but all the time. One of the strategies that I focus on all the time, particularly in small markets, is to have a diversified income sources where that is possible. So rather than having income from one customer through one product, like a lot of our farmers are, they are producing cattle and they're selling them all to JBS or selling them all to Greenhams. It's good to be able to have a range of income sources where that is possible. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes planning, but it certainly builds resilience by if one sector is not performing well, or you've got one sector where costs are higher, you may be able to pivot to another sector. So look at what are some other opportunities that you can, and other products and customers and markets that you might be able to diversify into. Look, working with your industry associations is something that you can do. For example, the fuel surcharge workshops that we did with the livestock transport operators and the truck owners and road transport operators operated through the Transport Association of Tasmania. They went to them. The Transport Association of Tasmania went to Business Tasmania, and we were able to run workshops, and we're very happy. We're very happy to do that sort of thing. I hate to think that people thought of Business Tasmania as just a place where we phone for assistance. They do a whole stack of other projects as well. It's a many-faced beast. Is at Business Tasmania. Getting down into the weeds a bit. So we've looked sort of generally at that case. Look, managing profit and cash. Look, as an advisor, and I've been doing this stuff for nearly 30 odd years, and we deal with 300, 400 customers every year. So you can do the maths on that. That's a fair few. That's a fair few customers and sessions that I, for one, have run. I do more on managing profit and cash than probably in any other area. And it's absolutely and utterly critical. And knowing the difference between profit and cash. Cash is king. Identifying realistic sales expectations, understanding what the changing circumstances are likely to mean for your customers and how sensitive they are to price, considering offering lower price points where that is possible, where you can maintain margin, and issuing stronger value for money propositions. Align costs with revenue generation. So only having those costs which you have to have in order to generate revenue. So you have to prioritise your must-have costs over the nice-to-have ones. It might be a time maybe to lease less expensive vehicles. One of the things about small businesses is that small business operators have a multitude of reasons as to why they're in business, and doing work only on work that they want to do, only doing work for clients they want to work with, having family members as employees. There might be a few of these sacred cows which cost you money, which during this time you might have to look at. Focus on minimising fixed costs where possible. Fixed costs are those costs which you have to have just to open the door of your business. So whether you're selling nothing or selling a heap, your fixed costs are those ones that you have. Your rent, your insurances, all of those sorts of things. So if there's something that you can do about those to lower the fixed costs, so if your revenue lowers, if your revenue is lower, then generally your direct costs or your variable costs are lower as well. But fixed costs are the ones we have to jump over. So having a good understanding between which costs you've got a variable, they're the ones that go up and down according to how much you're selling, and fixed costs are the ones that remain the same. Getting that balance right. As I mentioned before, cash is king, and forecasting likely cash inflows and outflows but on a month-by-month basis is absolutely critical. Maintaining as strong a credit position as you can. So if there are other sources of cash that you can have to make sure that your credit card payments aren't maxing out, or you're missing loan repayments, if you can do something about that, that's actually really good. And making sure that you're talking to your bank and your customers and suppliers all the time. If you need help doing profit and cash forecasts, yell out, and it'll be myself or one of the other advisors can actually come and help you through that. Some people say, well, look, there's no point me doing forecasting because I don't know what my sales are going to be. I just have to wait and see what happens. And I think that's a risky strategy. This is not the time to sit back and wait to see what happens, and I'll just bunker down and then come up when everything's sorted out. It may well be that the market's gone past you and you're left out in the cold. So look at your risk management plan, but also look at your costs, both current and forecast, and particularly those ones which affect your sector. And there's a slide earlier on that I referred to those. If you're in the tourism market, what's happening with your key visitor segments? If you are mainly reliant on national and international visitors, and a lot of tourism businesses in Tasmania are reliant on our interstate visitors, you need to have a good look at that. Keeping your key employees up to speed, knowing what's going on, and also talking to your key suppliers, because if we haven't got stock, well, then it makes it pretty hard to actually earn income, whilst closely monitoring cash flow and looking for those things which to try and give you as much lead time as you possibly can. Look at declining bookings. What do you have to do to maintain and build future bookings? Do you actually really need to go ahead with that capital expansion that you actually looked at, and concentrating on your core products, services, customers, and target markets? They are our core customers, are the ones where we do the best in. In your business, we have stuff that we do better than anyone else. Concentrate on those because they are the ones that you are most competitive with. Look, make sure that you've got the right information, and your information is as up to date as possible for good decision making. And if you've got to talk to your accountant about that, by all means, do that. So making sure that you know how you're going across your revenue areas, and I'm talking about budget versus actual. If you're not doing budget reporting, budget versus actual, now is a good time to start. Rather than looking at the profit and loss statement for the month and seeing there's a figure at the bottom and it's profitable, so therefore everything's okay, it might be good if you're looking at also individual budget items to see, well, oh gee, that was more than we thought. What do we need to do about that? As far as costs, as far as profit, and our cash flow, and not just looking at the bank balance. So many businesses look at the bank balance, I've got money in the bank, so everything's okay, but don't realise that next month there's a whole set of loan repayments and insurance repayments that are due for payment, and there's just not enough money in there to actually do it. Reporting cycles for your business might need to be shortened rather than doing them 6 monthly or quarterly. You might need to go from quarterly to monthly, or from monthly even to weekly. I mean, look, that's an interesting point. One of the questions, and this is actually relevant at this point, is people who we've done work for in relation to fuel surcharges say, look, well, how often should I adjust my actual fuel surcharge? And my answer to that is, you need to look at how the price of fuel is moving. If it's changing dramatically from week to week, then you've got to redo your fuel surcharge every week. Or if it's not quite as much as that, monthly might be okay, or even quarterly. But you need to look at how changes in costs are occurring and how often that is, to work out how often you need to be looking at those. You need the right systems in place. If you haven't got some good accounting software, an MIB or a Xero or a QuickBooks or whatever you're using, then that's a good time to actually get those sorts of systems in place. And if you need support from your bookkeepers and accountants or business advisors, please do that. Access to information. Access to information which is current gives you the longest time to respond, and also enables you to respond faster. I mean, there are some measures to include. I'm not going to go into those in any detail, but your working capital ratio, that is the ratio of current assets to current liabilities. A good ratio is 2 to 1, right? Twice as much in the value of current assets to your current liabilities, which means that if everything goes pear-shaped, you've at least got enough assets you can convert into cash to pay off those critical short-term liabilities first up. Now, what's happening with your debtor days? Are they getting out? Are they dragging out and dragging out? Because that is a source of cash. Have you got creditors putting more and more pressure on you to actually shorten your time from 30 days to actually 14 days down to 7 days? All those things are actually are critical. How much days cash you've got available, forward bookings, and so on. One of the key characteristics of the current scenario with the Strait of Hormuz is that we actually don't know what the hell is going to happen. It seems to change from day to day. So we can't think, well, I think this is going to happen, so therefore we'll plan for that. I actually believe we need to be planning for some scenarios and coming up with, well, what is the worst thing? What's the worst case in terms of costs and revenues that it's likely to be? What do we most likely think it is, and what might be the best one? And preparing profit and cash forecasts for all 3 of those scenarios, and be confident that with the worst case scenario, what are you going to do? If that worst case scenario turns out, which it quite often does, what are you going to do? And if you need some help coming up with scenarios, give us a yell. So each scenario should consider the impact of what's likely to happen with revenues, what's happening to cash, key costs, our customer mix, our employees, competitor action, and those sorts of things. And what are the impact of the scenarios on, for example, are we still able to make loan repayments? Can we still meet our quality requirements? Can we still meet our ATO requirements, whether you're on an ATO payment plan or just your normal superannuation, PAYG, tax instalments, and GST? Can you meet all those? And if you can't, and anything to do with the tax office, go and talk to your accountant. Accountants live, eat, breathe, and sleep tax, and they are your best contact with the tax office. Trying to maintain your visitor or your customer volume is actually is really important, because that drives revenue. So look at that and see how that's going. What are the things which are most likely to impact your revenues? And there are a number of points on this screen, but I cannot overemphasize the importance of continuing to focus on delivering what your unique competitive advantage is. It's the thing that you do better than anyone else, and it's the thing that allows you to charge more than everyone else because you're better at it. And if you need some help doing that kind of stuff, then by all means, yell out. I've mentioned previously that, keep talking to your main stakeholders. That's your customer groups, your key suppliers, your finances, the bank, and employees. So understand how the war in Iran may affect each of those, and what does it mean for them, and how are you going to talk to them? I don't think that battening down the hatches and don't say anything because you don't know what to say. You do need to work out what it is, because if you're going to change your prices or you don't have products available, you need to let customers know so they don't go somewhere else. If you are having issues getting product or services from key suppliers, you need to know that as soon as possible so you can source alternative suppliers. If you're going to have some issues making loan repayments, go and talk to the bank and let your employees know what is going on as far as that's concerned. Look, you can, as I mentioned before along the way, and Kelly will mention something about this as well, is that there is a lot of support available. No one has a silver bullet. It's just doing good, basic business practice more often and on steroids. So, and if you're not sure of how to do those sorts of things, or you want someone to have a look and say, look, geez, am I doing the best I can, or am I doing things the right way for the circumstances? There is help through BT. Over to you, Kelly.
Thanks, Warren. You've certainly covered a lot of ground there, and a lot of good strategies and things for everyone to have a think about. So, as I mentioned at the start, you can follow up and contact Business Tasmania to connect with Warren for free business advice, or we have other advisors in the network as well, but we also have a lot of other free support that we can help you with, whether that's dealing with the current situation, which will perhaps go on for quite some time, we don't know, but or in a normal operating environment, whatever that actually means these days. So we're there for you every step of the way. So on that last slide, you can see that Warren will just share. There are lots of ways to connect with us. And so I know Warren's covered a lot, and so which all great stuff, which I'm sure you've all taken in, but don't be overwhelmed. That's why we're here to help you with anything that Warren has covered. What I'll do shortly is we'll end the recording, and then we can have time to ask questions. You can come off mute and ask Warren questions or put questions in the chat. But if you need to go, I totally understand that. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight for the Managing Fuel Cost Impact Support for Small Business online event.